What I want to talk about today is loneliness, okay? And what I want to tell you is that I discovered, I at least, am never alone. And there's something tremendously comforting about that. But in order to come to that conclusion, you have to face your own loneliness. You have to face your own solitude. You have to sit with yourself in silence and be you. When you're quiet with yourself and you're kind of forgiving with yourself, you're kind of kind with yourself, you decide rather than judging yourself that you're simply going to sit with yourself and let you be. The you kind of dissolves a little bit. It kind of quietens. It starts out very noisy, and then it sinks and it settles and it feels more stable. It feels anchored. And then there is a point at which you let go of the anchor as well. And you are. And you know that you are. There is a sense inside of you that you are. But it doesn't need expressing. That words couldn't encapsulate it no matter how hard you tried. And so that's pointless. And once you get to that point of sitting quietly with yourself alone, that's when you suddenly realize that you're not alone. That there's so much going on inside, and that you and other were never really a thing, that somehow that was a construct, and that the felt sense is much more harmonious than that. And somehow you belong. You belong. I mean, look at this place, right? This is, well, isolated to say the least. With a certain mindset, you could be very frightened out here because you're very far from individuals. And with another mindset, you're in a state of utter bliss, purity, simplicity, harmony, love. But to get to that, this little chattering bit has to, let's not say go away completely, but turn off a little bit. And there's this wonderful friend inside that you can't quite grasp. You can't quite define, because to define you would have to objectify it, which would mean you would have to be outside of yourself to observe it. And you're down the wrong path by doing that, because you are both the observer and the object, because it's the same thing. And so what you are is a sense of personal awareness that's very hard to define, but that sits in this, sits in everything, and the bird and the insects and the rocks sit too. It's a very secure feeling. Suddenly you feel like you belong. That there's no need to push against that. There's no need even to explain it. There's no need to be making stuff. There's no need to be creating mind. Yeah? There's no need to be actively re-selfing, justifying what this thing is that we call our identity. And instead, by sitting with yourself, the yourself blends. That's why I feel as though you're never alone. because this spiritual oneness is all encompassing. It's like a massive, massive comfort blanket, a duvet that wraps around you in just the right way. And you've come home. And you've come home to yourself. And you've come home to the world. And it makes sense. To the point where you no longer need to consider it. It just is. It doesn't need questioning. It doesn't need proving. You already are at home. You already are everything. Yeah? An expression of everything. And at the same time, almost nothing. Almost nothing. And I say almost because you can't get far enough behind your mind to discover what that eternal, infinite consciousness is. We're constantly minding, we're constantly recreating this story of the brain inside the skull, inside the body, and longevity and time and distance and location and relationships and it, other, cause, effect. All of which feels right, but all of which is somewhat of a distraction. And the thing is, with this idea to get back to loneliness and to get back to you're never actually alone, you're always with yourself. The antidote to loneliness that mind creates is to do stuff, it's to meet people. It's to obliterate the feeling of loneliness with experience. None of which quite works, but which can be tremendously addictive because it works a little bit. But then you go back to yourself, in the middle of the night when there is no experience there. The truth will bubble up. So it's just this funny thing, right? We go through, I think everybody has to struggle with this feeling of what it is to be an individual, to be, born into this world alone and potentially end in this world alone. And what that means and the fear that is attached to that. And the deeper you go into it, the less meaning it has, the less substance it has. And the more bountiful and beauteous and everything that everything is. And it's this very, very curious conundrum that the more everything there is, the less you can count it, because you and it are one and the same. Kind of an existential video this morning. There is a massive gift in considering your own loneliness, considering the conclusions. Consider your actions that are made because of that sensation of potential or real loneliness. And question it. Because the conclusions that we ordinarily come to are made of this me versus other mindset. And there is a deeper level, a more beautiful, more bountiful level, which is tremendously powerful, tremendously comforting, tremendously real, somewhat intangible and somewhat solid. All right, I'll shut up there. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.